Hi, Doug Noll here. One of the most important skills you can ever learn is how to control emotions before they control you. However, people think reacting in the heat of the moment is just who they are. But after training over 10,000 people, I can tell you it's actually a failure of your brain's operating system. For 25 years, I've coached high performers, and my clients have used these exact steps to settle million-dollar lawsuits and to stop useless arguments from spinning out of control. Here's the thing. There are 4 levels of emotional regulation, and most people are stuck at level 0. By the end of this video, you'll know how to reach level 4 mastery, where you stop reacting and start choosing how you feel. No matter how ugly the situation gets, no matter how provoked somebody will try it, no matter how provoked you might feel. So let's start with the basic definition of emotions. Emotions are really kind of interesting. First of all, we're not born with emotions. We actually learn how to create them starting at about 18 months of age. Emotions are based on something called affect, and affect are neurochemical events in the brain's system that arise in various brain regions. So for example, fear and anger might arise in the amygdala, disgust might arise in a part of the brain called the insula, and pleasure and excitement arise in the striatum with dopamine. Emotions are not weaknesses or character flaws or choices. They are biological events that are essential to our functioning in our environment, because without emotions, how could we even make decisions? In fact, people who have had parts of their prefrontal cortex relating to emotions destroyed because of brain cancer, for example, find that they cannot make decisions. So if you're alive, you're going to have emotions, and that's not the problem. The problem is what happens when the amygdala fires and the prefrontal cortex goes offline. So here's a really key point that I teach over and over again. Emotions are data, just like numbers on a spreadsheet. Most people treat them as noise and try to be suppressed, and that's where they make the big mistake. So what happens when emotions take over, especially negative emotions? So our brains are constantly evaluating the environment around us, and we're really asking 3 questions in every microsecond. Am I safe? Can I trust you? Do I matter to you? A part of the brain called the amygdala detects threats, real or perceived, and immediately fires off a threat response if there is the slightest possibility of danger. When the signal is strong enough, the amygdala floods the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex, where rational thinking, perspective taking, and empathy live, goes offline. Logic, self-awareness, rationality, all disappears. Only reactive programming remains. And this is not a personality problem. It's a brain event. It's a biophysiological reaction to something in the environment, and it happens to every single human being, every single one of us. Now, most people stop here. They think, okay, I react, and that's just how I'm wired. But that's not the full picture, because there are actually 4 distinct levels of how people handle emotions. And most high performers are stuck at level 3 without even knowing it. Let me show you what that means. But real quick, if you want to go deeper on exactly what's happening in your brain during these moments, I have a free guide called The Neuroscience of Reaction that breaks down the brain science behind why we lose control and what's actually triggering it. The link's in the description, so check it out there. All right, so let's talk about the 4 stages of emotional reactivity. Stage 1, pure reaction. So an emotion gets triggered and the amygdala fires off and action follows immediately. In other words, there's no gap between the feeling and the behavior. There's no awareness, no pause, no choice. For example, there are times when maybe you got so mad you wanted to put your fist through a wall. Or examples of road rage where people just lose it and do crazy stuff. Or maybe you just snap at somebody when you get triggered and you don't even think about it. That's reactivities. Stage 1. No control. You're basically shut down from being able to think your way through the problem clearly, and you're basically reverting back to childhood programming. Okay, stage 2. We can call this partial awareness. You can feel the emotion coming up, but you can't stop it. The prefrontal cortex is trying to engage, but the amygdala always wins. People around you can see that you're fighting it, but the emotion still drives the outcome. Now, stages 1 and 2 are obvious. Most people recognize these situations in themselves, but stages 3 and 4 is where it gets a lot more interesting and a lot more uncomfortable, because stage 3 is where most leaders and high performers actually live. You see, stage 3 is suppression. You appear calm on the outside, but inside you were boiling with anger or frustration or just pure rage. The emotion is still fully active, just buried inside yourself. This is not regulation. It's a pressure cooker, ready to release at any time. And this is where most high performers live. And that gets us to stage 4, full regulation. The prefrontal cortex can feel the emotion and modulate it. You get to decide how much of the emotion to express and when. You get to figure out how to re-regulate yourself. You respond instead of reacting. You stay present and in control at all times. And you know something? This is learnable. It's a skill, not a personality trait. So now that you know which level you're operating at, the real question is, how do you actually move up? How do you move from a level 1 all the way up to a level 4? And this is where most advice completely falls apart because the answer is not what you think. Here's the 4-step process. Step number 1, name it. You cannot regulate what you cannot see. So you want to name the emotions that you're feeling in the moment. I've developed a 7-layer model that I use with my clients to teach them how to have emotions at the tip of their tongue so they can immediately go to what they're feeling. And those layers are anger, disrespect, fear, disgust, embarrassment, sadness, and abandonment. Ask yourself, which of these is active right now? Anger? Am I angry? Do I feel disrespected? Am I anxious? Do I feel disgusted and nauseated and appalled? Am I shamed, embarrassed, or humiliated? Am I sad? Do I feel abandoned, betrayed, and rejected? You want to be specific. Using a word frustrated like I'm frustrated is much better than using some ambiguous word like I feel bad right now. The term for this is called affect labeling. And when you turn inward and label your own emotions, it works on your brain to quiet the centers of the brain associated with negative emotion and activate the prefrontal cortex regions associated with emotional control and self-regulation. So step number 2 is to accept your emotional feelings without fighting them. Your emotions are not your enemy. And so when you suppress them, you only make them stronger. Simply acknowledge, this is happening in my brain right now. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling frustrated. It's a neurochemical event. It will pass. And just sit with it. Emotions follow a biological arc. Most people don't know this, but the half-life of an emotion is about 90 seconds. And if you resist the emotion, you extend it way beyond that 90 seconds. So once the chemicals have passed and dissipated, if you just sit with it, it will go away. And this next step is the one most people skip entirely, and it's the reason they say stuck, because naming and accepting emotions is only the half of it. The other half is what do you do in the gap between feeling the emotion and acting on it. By the way, if you want to practice these skills with other people who are working on the same thing, I have a free community where we go through all of this together and where there are a ton of free resources, including video lessons and posts and people to work with. It's called the De-escalate Academy. It's free to join, and the link's in the description, so we'll see you in there. The key is not to eliminate the emotion. It is to create space between the emotion and the action. And the gap is where the choice lives. The practical way to create that gap and give yourself time is to name the emotion out loud to yourself. Slow your breathing to shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic state and wait for the 90-second arc to complete. Once the prefrontal cortex comes back online, you have access to judgment, empathy, and perspective. And you also have access to your emotional database, so you can literally process what you're feeling. Now you can decide what to say or do, rather than having the amygdala decide for you automatically and reactively. And that's what emotional regulation looks like in practice. Now I want to show you the one skill that makes all 4 of these steps significantly faster and easier. And it all comes from neuroscience research out of UCLA. This is the part that most people have never heard of. And as I said before, the skill is called affect labeling, naming emotions precisely in words. In 2007, Matthew Lieberman and his colleagues in fMRI research showed that when you name emotions through affect labeling, it reduces amygdala activity and reactivates the prefrontal cortex. That's it. Just by naming the emotions, it fixes it. It works on others, it works on yourself. And the more fluent you become at naming your own emotions and the emotions of others, the faster you regulate other people's emotions and the faster you self-regulate yourself. And the beauty of it is this is a trainable skill. It improves with deliberate practice. So emotional regulation is not about becoming less emotional. It's not about developing the gap between stimulus and response. Every person who has trained this skill seriously has stopped having fights and arguments forever in their lives. And I'm including people who are serving life sentences in maximum security prisons to CEOs of major corporations. Not because they stopped feeling, but because they stopped letting their feelings drive their behavior. This is the skill. Practice it. Okay, so if you've gotten this far, you've already understand something most people never figure out, that your emotions are not the problem. Not knowing what to do with them is the problem. First thing I want you to do is grab my free masterclass, How to Stop Any Fight in 90 Seconds or Less. It's a complete walkthrough of the method I've used with over 10,000 people, and it's going to show you exactly how to apply everything we've covered today in real conversations. The link is in the description. And if you're ready to go further than that, I have an 8-week private coaching program where I work with you one-on-one. We go through the neuroscience, the affect labeling methods, real scenarios from your specific situation, and we keep going until you have complete confidence of being able to walk into any situation, no matter how intense, and know exactly what to say with calm, confident compassion and quiet things down. Let me tell you, every single client who has done this work has stopped fights and arguments forever in their lives, both personally and in their professional and business lives. I back all of this with a free money-back guarantee, which is to say that if you do the work, and you find out that it's not for you, or for some reason it's not working for you, I'll give you your money back. And the truth is, I've never ever given anybody any money back. But I keep the guarantee out there because people want to know that this is risk-free. So the first step is to book a free call with me. The link to schedule with me is in the description. And if you're not ready for that yet, just subscribe to my channel, drop in suggestions for what you'd like to learn about, and I'll make up videos. Well, that's it for today. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.